The shepherd boy who slew a giant. In long ago days, when there were giants, there lived in the land of Israel a shepherd boy named David. He was the youngest of 8 brothers. The 3 oldest of these were grown up and gone to the wars, but David was left in the wilderness to keep the sheep. David had a sling for throwing stones, and when the wolves and the bears came to carry off his sheep, he drove them away with his sling. But one day there came a lion, a great big yellow lion, and he picked up a lamb in his mouth and ran away with it. David ran after him and caught the lion and killed him, and he took the poor lamb back to his mother. Then there came a bear, a great big black bear, and he took up a lamb in his mouth and ran off with it. And David ran after him and caught up with him. When the bear stood up on his hind feet to fight, David caught hold of him and killed him, and he took the lamb back to its mother. One day he was out all alone with his sheep, when a man came running to him from his father's house and said, "Your father wants you." So he left the man with his sheep and went to his father. And his father said, "David, here are 10 loaves of bread and a bushel of roasted grain that I want you to take to your brothers in the army. And here are 10 cheeses for you to give to their captain." So David loaded the bread and the grain and the cheeses on a donkey, and took a man along to help him, and so he came to the army. Now there was a giant ready to fight the Israelites, and he was down in the valley, shouting, "Give me a man to fight with me. I am a Philistine, and you are Israelites. If he kills me, all the Philistines will be your servants. But if I kill him, all the Israelites shall be our servants. If you are not afraid, give me one of your men to fight with me." But no one would go to fight with him, for he was 10 feet tall, and he had a great shield, a helmet, a coat of mail, an armor for his legs, all made of brass, and he had a spear whose head weighed 25 pounds, and a sword that another man could hardly lift. So everyone was afraid of him. But when David heard him shouting, and saw that everyone was afraid of him, he said, "I will go and fight this giant, and the God who helped me kill the lion and the bear will help me kill this giant." So he started down into the valley. He had no helmet, and he had no shield, and he had no sword, but he went down with only his shepherd's staff and his sling. When he came down to the bottom of the valley, he stopped at the brook, picked up 5 smooth stones, and put them into his shepherd's bag. Then he climbed up the bank and went to meet the giant. But when the giant saw him coming, and saw how little he was, and saw that he had no helmet or shield or sword, but only a staff and a sling, he was very angry, and he shouted, "Am I a dog that you come to drive me away with a stick? Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field." But David wasn't afraid of him. He shouted back at him so that everyone could hear, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to you in the name of Jehovah of hosts, whom you have defied. And he will give you into my hands, that all the world may know that there is a God in Israel." Then he ran forward to meet the giant, and the giant strode forward to meet David. A man came before the giant bearing his shield, and the giant got ready his spear and his sword, and pushed back his helmet on his head, and cursed David by all his gods. But David stopped, and he took a stone out of his shepherd's bag and put it into his sling. Then he swung it around his head and slung it at the giant. The stone whizzed straight toward the giant and struck him right in the forehead where he had pushed back his helmet. The stone sank in, and the giant fell. Then the man that bore his shield turned and ran, and David ran forward and stood on the giant and took up the giant's own sword and cut off his head. Then how the Israelites shouted, and they all ran forward, and the Philistines ran away. So this is how the shepherd boy who trusted in God slew the great giant who despised God.